This is a story from my life, a series of events that I've replayed in my mind 1,000 times. It's not something I'm proud of, but it's something that happened, and it changed everything. The air in the grand ballroom of the Beverly Wilshire was thick with the scent of lilies and expensive perfume, a glittering sea of champagne flutes and hushed, important conversations. My sister, Chloe, stood by the velvet rope, her face a mask of disbelief as the head of security shook his head, his expression as unyielding as the marble columns behind him. And in that precise moment, as I walked past her into the event she had been so desperate to attend, the weight of the Serafina bag on my arm felt less like leather and gold, and more like the perfect, cold heft of justice. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel, tell us where you're from, and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. It started, as most modern tragedies do, with an Instagram post. I was in my downtown Los Angeles loft, editing a set of architectural photos I'd taken of a stunning minimalist home in the Hollywood Hills. The work was demanding, precise, and deeply satisfying. Every line, every shadow had to be perfect. My world was one of controlled angles and earned opportunities. My sister's world, on the other hand, was a chaotic whirlwind of fleeting trends, borrowed aesthetics, and an unquenchable thirst for online validation. Chloe was an influencer, or at least, she was desperately trying to be one. Her life was a meticulously curated feed of experiences she hadn't truly lived and possessions she didn't actually own. Our parents called it her hustle. I called it a performance. That night, a notification lit up my phone. Chloe had tagged me in a post. I swiped it open, and the breath caught in my throat. There she was, standing on the sun-drenched terrace of the Getty Villa in Malibu, overlooking the Pacific. She was wearing a rented designer dress and a smug, self-satisfied smile. But it wasn't the dress or the location that made my blood run cold. It was the bag slung over her shoulder. My bag. The Julian Vance Serafina. It was a prototype, a one-of-a-kind piece, handcrafted from midnight blue Italian leather with a clasp of brushed gold shaped like a stylized wing. It wasn't just a bag, it was a trophy. Julian Vance, the notoriously reclusive designer, had gifted it to me personally after I'd spent a month photographing his private residence in Big Sur. He wasn't a client, he was an artist I admired, and the project had been a collaboration of mutual respect. He had handed me the bag in its silk dust cover and said, "For an eye that sees beauty in structure. It's the only one in the world. For now." It represented months of hard work, a career milestone, and a professional relationship I cherished. It lived on a dedicated shelf in my closet, a silent testament to the fact that I had earned my place in a competitive world. And there it was on Chloe's arm, exposed to the salty air and the potential carelessness of a photo shoot. But the image was only the first layer of the betrayal. The second was the caption. Such a dream come true to be collaborating with the visionary Julian Vance. He sent me this stunning, unreleased Serafina bag to celebrate our new project. Can't wait to show you all what we're working on. Hashtag Julian Vance, hashtag Serafina, hashtag blessed, hashtag luxury lifestyle. My fingers went numb. Collaborating? He sent it to her? The lies were so audacious, so breathtakingly bold, that I felt a wave of dizziness. She hadn't just taken my most prized possession. She had stolen the story behind it, twisting my achievement into a prop for her fabricated life. Hundreds of comments were already flooding in. OMG, congrats. You deserve it. Iconic. Each one felt like a tiny, sharp stone hitting my skin. I scrolled back to the picture, my eyes locking onto the bag. The way she held it so casually, like it was just another accessory. It felt like a violation. My loft, usually a sanctuary of calm and order, suddenly felt claustrophobic. The meticulously edited photos on my screen blurred. All I could see was that picture, that lie, that bag. I pulled up my contacts and hit her name. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times before going to voicemail. My heart hammered against my ribs. I sent a text, my thumbs shaking with a rage so pure it felt like ice in my veins. "Where is my bag, Chloe?" Chloe didn't respond for 3 hours. 3 hours during which I paced the polished concrete floors of my loft, cycling through a nauseating cocktail of fury, anxiety, and a deep, familiar sense of familial disappointment. My parents had always enabled her. While I was taking out loans for photography school and working 3 jobs to afford my first professional camera, they were funding Chloe's brand-building trips to Bali and co-signing the lease on her trendy West Hollywood apartment that she could barely afford. "She's a creative, Amelia," my mother would say. "She just needs a little support to find her footing." Her footing always seemed to land squarely on my back. The borrowing had started small. A sweater here, a pair of shoes there. It had escalated over the years to borrowing my professional contacts, trying to network with my clients at my gallery shows, and once, even pitching a warped version of a creative concept I'd shared with her in confidence. Each time, I was told I was overreacting. "That's just Chloe," they'd say with a sigh, as if her blatant opportunism was an endearing personality quirk. Finally, my phone buzzed. A text from her. "OMG Chillix. I just borrowed it for a quick pic. It's fine. It's at my place." The dismissive tone, the casual Chillix, was like gasoline on a fire. I didn't text back. I grabbed my keys, walked out of my building, and got into my car. The 40-minute drive from downtown LA to West Hollywood during evening traffic was a special kind of torture, each red light a test of my restraint. When I finally pulled up to her building, I didn't even bother buzzing. I used the emergency key she'd given me and let myself in. She was on her couch, scrolling through her phone, a glass of rose in her hand. She looked up, not with guilt or alarm, but with annoyance. "Wow, ever hear of knocking?" she asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. The Serafina bag was sitting on her marble coffee table, nestled precariously between a half-eaten bowl of edamame and a pile of PR packages she hadn't opened. I walked over, picked it up, and ran my hands over the leather, checking for any scratches or scuffs. "What were you thinking, Chloe?" My voice was low, dangerously steady. "What in God's name were you thinking?" She rolled her eyes, the picture of aggrieved innocence. "I was thinking it's a beautiful bag, and it looked amazing with my outfit. It got like 10,000 likes in an hour. I basically just gave you and your designer friend a ton of free publicity. You should be thanking me." "Thanking you?" I could feel a tremor in my hands. "You lied, Chloe. You stole my bag and you lied to thousands of people, claiming you're collaborating with Julian Vance. Do you have any idea how much damage that could do to my professional reputation?" "Oh, please," she scoffed, taking a delicate sip of her wine. "Don't be so dramatic. It's not that deep. No one cares. It's just Instagram." That was her mantra, her excuse for everything. It's just Instagram. As if the digital world was a consequence-free fantasyland where actions didn't have real-world repercussions. I clutched the bag to my chest. "Take the post down. Now." For a moment, I saw a flicker of defiance in her eyes. She genuinely considered saying no. The arrogance was astounding. "Fine," she finally huffed, grabbing her phone. "God, you're so uptight. It's a shame you have such amazing things when you don't even know how to have fun with them." She tapped at her phone for a moment, and then held it up. "There. Deleted." Happy. But it wasn't deleted. She had archived it. I knew because the likes and comments were still visible to her. She was just hiding it from public view, ready to be resurrected whenever she pleased. I didn't have the energy to fight that battle right now. All I wanted was to get the bag and myself out of her toxic orbit. I turned to leave. "You know," she called out to my back, her voice suddenly sweet, laced with venom. "That photographer I worked with today? He said I have a real eye. He thinks I could be a brand ambassador. Maybe I should be the one getting gifts from designers." I didn't turn around. I just walked out, the click of the closing door punctuating the end of the conversation. Back in my car, under the sterile glow of the streetlights, I examined the bag more closely. And that's when I saw it. A small, dark smudge near the clasp. It looked like makeup foundation. A tiny, insignificant stain to anyone else, but to me it was desecration. It was proof of her carelessness, of her complete and utter disrespect. But the worst discovery was yet to come. Later that night, unable to sleep, I did something I hadn't intended to do. I looked up the photographer Chloe had tagged. His professional website was sleek, his portfolio filled with aspiring influencers posing in scenic LA locations. Under his recent work blog, there it was. A whole gallery of photos titled Chloe Sterling X Vance Atelier Preview. There were dozens of shots. Chloe with the bag at the Getty. Chloe with the bag on Rodeo Drive. Chloe with the bag at a cafe in Beverly Hills. The bag sitting on the table like a guest of honor. It wasn't a quick pic. It was a full-blown multi-location commercial-style photo shoot. The text on the blog post read, "Honored to work with the vibrant Chloe Sterling on this campaign preview for her upcoming partnership with the legendary Julian Vance." My stomach lurched. He believed her lie, too. She hadn't just used my bag. She'd used it to dupe a fellow creative, leveraging my hard-earned connection to build a fraudulent campaign. She wasn't just faking it for her followers. She was faking it for the industry. Just as the full weight of her deception settled over me, my laptop pinged with a new email. My heart stopped. The subject line read, "Regarding the Serafina." It was from Julian Vance's personal assistant. The name in the from field was Eleanor Vance, Julian's niece and fiercely protective gatekeeper. Seeing it in my inbox felt like being summoned to the principal's office, but infinitely worse. My hands trembled as I clicked it open. The email was brief, polite, and absolutely devastating. "Dear Amelia," it began. "Julian was made aware of an Instagram post this afternoon featuring the Serafina prototype bag. He was, as you can imagine, quite surprised to learn of a collaboration he had not approved. We were hoping you could provide some clarity on the situation at your earliest convenience. Sincerely, Eleanor." The corporate politeness was a thin veil for what lay beneath. Confusion, disappointment, and a clear demand for an explanation. My relationship with Julian Vance was built on a foundation of professionalism and mutual artistic respect. He was an old-school craftsman who despised the transient, fame-hungry culture of influencers. The idea that he would think I had casually lent out his personal, one-of-a-kind gift to a wannabe lifestyle guru for a tacky Instagram shoot was mortifying. It didn't just make me look unprofessional, it made me look tasteless. It undermined the very reason he'd given me the bag in the first place, for having an eye that sees beauty in structure. Chloe's cheap stunt had managed to cheapen me by association. I spent the next hour drafting and redrafting a reply, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. How could I explain my sister's pathological need for attention without sounding like I was making excuses, or, worse, throwing my own family under the bus? In the end, I chose the simple, unvarnished truth. I explained that the bag was taken from my home without my knowledge or permission by my sister, who then completely fabricated the story of a collaboration for her social media. I expressed my profound regret and embarrassment, and assured them I had retrieved the bag and that this would never happen again. I hit send with a sense of finality, feeling as if I had just launched a delicate glass bottle into a stormy sea. All I could do was wait and hope it reached its destination intact. The next morning, I called my mother. I needed to explain the severity of the situation, to make her understand that Chloe's actions had real consequences that could impact my career. It was a mistake. "Oh, honey, you're making a mountain out of a molehill," she said, her voice already tinged with the familiar note of defensive placation she used whenever Chloe was criticized. "She's just trying to build her brand. It's a tough world out there for young women." "Mom," she lied. I said, my voice tight. "She committed a form of professional fraud using my property. She put my relationship with a very important contact at risk." "Julian Vance? That handbag designer?" "Amelia, he's just a fashion person. Your work is in architecture. It's not like it's going to ruin your life." Chloe apologized, didn't she? She didn't, actually. And that's not the point. "Well, she's very sensitive right now. You shouldn't be so hard on her. She just got the most exciting news." I braced myself. "What news?" "She's been invited to the Vance Atelier launch party," my mother gushed, her voice swelling with pride. "It's a huge deal. Very exclusive. Only the biggest names are going. She said that photo of her with the bag must have been what got their attention. See, it all worked out for the best. The silence on my end of the line was cavernous. It all worked out. For Chloe. She had faced zero consequences for her theft and deception. In fact, in her twisted reality and my parents' enabling one, she was being rewarded for it. The injustice was so profound, so staggeringly unfair, that the last vestiges of my hurt and anxiety were burned away, replaced by something cold, hard, and sharp. Rage. A pure, clarifying rage. Chloe, the architect of this entire mess, was going to waltz into an exclusive party hosted by the very man she had publicly disrespected. A party she believed she'd been invited to because of her lie. She would be there, networking, taking selfies, building her fraudulent career on a foundation of my work, my connections, my things. While I was left to clean up the professional wreckage, she would be sipping champagne. I stood in my silent loft, the morning sun casting long shadows across the floor. In my mind's eye, I saw her smug face, her dismissive eye roll, her casual cruelty. And in that moment, the seed of a plan began to germinate. It was a terrible, beautiful, intricate idea. It was no longer about damage control. It was about revenge. Chloe thought she was untouchable. She believed the universe rewarded the audacious and the dishonest. I was going to teach her, in front of everyone she so desperately wanted to impress, that some actions have consequences after all. The first step was to wait for Eleanor Vance's reply. But the second step, I realized, was to stop playing defense. It was time to go on the offensive, and I knew exactly where to start. My chance came 2 days later. The reply from Eleanor Vance was surprisingly swift and unexpectedly gracious. "Thank you for your honesty, Amelia," she wrote. "Julian understands. He holds your work in high regard and was relieved to hear your side of the story. He considers the matter closed." A wave of relief washed over me, so potent it almost made my knees buckle. My professional standing was secure. The fire was out, but the ashes were still smoldering, and the arsonist was about to attend a victory party. Now, with the threat to my career neutralized, I could focus entirely on the execution of my plan. My revenge wouldn't be a screaming match or a petty social media jab. It had to be as precise and well-structured as one of my photographs. It required research, patience, and the leveraging of my own authentic network, the very thing Chloe had always tried to co-opt. I started with the event itself, the Vance Atelier launch party. I knew it was being held at a private estate in Bel Air and managed by a top-tier public relations firm, Sterling Cross PR. A quick search confirmed they were titans in the luxury branding space. Their client list was a who's who of high fashion, and their events were notoriously buttoned up. Getting on their guest list was harder than getting into an Ivy League school. Chloe's belief that her one Instagram post had caught their eye was laughable. She'd clearly been swept up in a mass influencer data pull, a name on a spreadsheet, nothing more. My mind sifted through my contacts. Sterling Cross. The name was familiar. Then it hit me. 6 months ago, I had photographed a gallery opening in Santa Monica for a boutique art magazine. The editor-in-chief, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Isabella Rossi, had praised my work. During a lull in the evening, we chatted about the intersection of art and commerce. I remembered her complaining good-naturedly about her friend, Evelyn, who ran a major PR firm and was always trying to poach her for events. Evelyn Sterling of Sterling Cross PR. It was a long shot, a tenuous connection at best. But it was a start. I found Isabella's email and composed a careful message. I didn't ask for a favor directly. That would be clumsy. Instead, I framed it as seeking professional advice. I congratulated her on the latest issue of the magazine, then mentioned that I had a delicate situation involving an event being managed by her friend's firm. I briefly explained that a family member was attending under what I believed to be a misapprehension, and I was concerned about potential embarrassment for all parties involved. I kept it vague, professional, and intriguing. I was planting a seed, hoping it would grow in the direction I wanted. I hit send and tried to put it out of my mind, focusing on my work. For the next 24 hours, there was silence. I began to think it was a dead end. Maybe Isabella was too busy, or maybe she saw right through my carefully constructed email and wanted nothing to do with it. Chloe, meanwhile, was insufferable. She was deep in party prep mode, a tornado of frantic shopping trips on Rodeo Drive, appointments for hair and makeup, and an endless stream of Instagram stories documenting every mundane detail. "Which shoes say I have arrived?" she'd posted with a poll, showing 2 ridiculously expensive pairs of heels she had almost certainly bought on a credit card her future self would have to worry about. Each post was a new twist of the knife, a reminder of her unearned confidence and the impending victory she was about to celebrate. Then, on Friday afternoon, my phone rang. The caller ID was an unknown number with a 310 area code. I answered cautiously. "Amelia Pierce?" a woman's voice said. It was crisp, efficient, and radiated authority. "Yes, this is she. This is Evelyn Sterling. Isabella Rossi passed along your message. She said you had a concern about my event on Saturday." My heart leaped. It was her, the head of Sterling Cross PR. "Thank you so much for calling me," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "I appreciate you taking the time. Isabella is a dear friend. She said you were a class act, so you have my attention for 5 minutes. What's this about a misapprehension?" I took a deep breath. This was my one shot. I laid out the story as concisely and professionally as I could, stripping it of most of the sibling drama and focusing on the facts. The unauthorized use of a prototype, the false claim of a collaboration, and the potential brand damage to her client, Julian Vance. I ended by saying, "My sister now believes she was invited to the party as a result of that post, and I am deeply concerned about the misrepresentation this presents for Mr. Vance and your firm." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could hear the faint sound of typing. "Let me get this straight," Evelyn said, her voice now sharp as glass. "Your sister took a one-of-a-kind prototype, created a fake campaign around it, and is now planning to show up at my event, acting as if she's a legitimate partner of the brand?" "That is the situation, yes," I confirmed. The typing stopped. "Julian Vance is my most important client," she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "He values discretion and integrity above all else. He was, to put it mildly, furious about that Instagram post. He only calmed down after Eleanor received your email explaining the situation. Then came the words that made my plan snap into perfect, terrifying focus. Your sister's name, Chloe Sterling, is on our preliminary influencer list. It hasn't been vetted by the client yet. It was about to be." A slow smile spread across my face. It felt cold, foreign. "Evelyn," I said, my voice dropping slightly, "I believe I have an idea that could resolve this situation in a way that is both discreet and definitive." The phone call with Evelyn Sterling was a masterclass in strategic alignment. We were 2 professionals with a shared interest: protecting the integrity of a brand and an artist we both respected. For her, it was about client management and maintaining the ironclad exclusivity of her event. For me, it was about justice. The plan we devised was simple in its mechanics, but devastating in its potential impact. Evelyn explained that the guest list was now being finalized in direct consultation with Julian Vance's team. My sister's name, Chloe Sterling, was on a sublist of C-tier influencers they were planning to cut anyway. "We'll just make sure her name is not only cut, but flagged," Evelyn had said, a hint of steel in her voice. "Our security team is the best in the business. They are polite, professional, and completely immovable. But simply getting her disinvited wasn't enough. The revenge needed a witness. It needed a counterpoint. It needed me. What if, I had proposed, my heart beating a little faster, Mr. Vance were to extend a personal invitation to me, as his guest, a gesture to reaffirm our professional relationship?" Evelyn was silent for a moment. I could almost hear the gears turning. "That's brilliant," she'd finally said with a dry chuckle. "I have a feeling he'll appreciate the poetry of it." An hour later, a formal, gold-embossed invitation was messengered to my loft. It was addressed to me with a small, handwritten note at the bottom from Julian himself. "Amelia, looking forward to celebrating with you. Your eye for structure is always welcome. JV." Holding it felt like holding a weapon. The day of the party was surreal. Chloe was a tempest of nervous energy and unbridled arrogance. She sent me at least a dozen selfies from the salon, from the makeup chair, of her dress laid out on her bed. It was a garish, bright pink concoction, clearly chosen to be seen from space. "Ready for my big night," she texted. "This is going to change everything for me." I replied with a simple, "Have a great time." The ambiguity was delicious. I, on the other hand, chose my armor with care. A timeless, floor-length black gown. Simple, elegant, and designed to be a canvas, not the main event. And of course the Serafina bag. As I clipped the brushed gold clasp shut, the cool metal felt like a promise against my skin. I left my loft an hour after Chloe had departed in a rented Escalade, a vehicle she had undoubtedly hired to make an entrance. I took my own car, enjoying the quiet drive through the winding canyon roads leading up to Bel Air. The city lights twinkled below, a sprawling galaxy of other people's lives and dramas. Tonight, one of those dramas was mine. The estate was magnificent, a fortress of modern architecture glowing against the dark hills. A long line of black cars snaked up the driveway. As I neared the entrance, I saw it. The rented Escalade was pulled over to the side, and standing beside it, under the harsh glare of a security spotlight, was Chloe. Her posture told the whole story. The self-assured swagger was gone, replaced by a rigid, frantic tension. She was arguing with a man in a crisp black suit, who was holding a tablet. Even from a distance, I could see the color rising in her cheeks, the frantic gesturing of her hands. I instructed my driver to pull up to the main entrance. I stepped out of the car, the warm evening air washing over me. Paparazzi flashes flared to life, the photographers momentarily interested in a new arrival. I walked calmly towards the check-in podium, my path taking me directly past my sister. Her head whipped around as I approached. Her eyes widened, first in confusion, and then in dawning horror as she saw the Serafina bag on my arm. "Amelia," she hissed, her voice a strangled whisper. "What are you doing here?" I didn't answer her. I didn't even look at her. I continued to the check-in desk, where a woman with a headset smiled warmly. "Good evening. Welcome to the Vance Atelier launch." "Amelia Pierce," I said, my voice steady. The woman tapped her tablet. "Of course, Ms. Pierce. We have you right here. Mr. Vance's personal guest. Please go right in. Evelyn Sterling is waiting for you just inside." She gestured towards the grand entrance. It was at that moment that Evelyn herself appeared, looking impossibly chic in a silver dress. She ignored Chloe completely, her focus entirely on me. "Amelia," she said, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "So glad you could make it. Julian has been asking for you." She placed a guiding hand on my back and led me past the velvet rope. Just before I crossed the threshold, I allowed myself a single, fleeting glance back at my sister. She was standing frozen, her face a grotesque collage of fury, humiliation, and utter bewilderment. The man in the black suit was speaking into his radio, and the crowd of onlookers was murmuring, their attention shifting from the glamorous arrivals to the small, pathetic drama unfolding at the gate. The bright pink dress that was meant to make her stand out now just made her look like a sad, garish flamingo, barred from entering paradise. As the doors to the party closed behind me, shutting out the chaos, the sounds of the party, the clinking of glasses, the low thrum of music, the sophisticated laughter, welcomed me in. The inside of the estate was even more breathtaking than the exterior. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls overlooked the glittering expanse of Los Angeles. Art installations hung suspended from the ceiling, and the air buzzed with the energy of the city's creative elite. Designers I had only read about in magazines chatted in small groups. Film directors mingled with artists, and fashion editors surveyed the scene with practiced eyes. It was a world away from the desperate, performative universe Chloe inhabited. This was the real thing. Evelyn guided me through the crowd with practiced ease. "Julian is holding court by the fireplace," she said, pointing towards a massive, minimalist hearth where a small group was gathered around a distinguished man with silver hair. "Before I hand you over, let me just say, that was exquisitely handled." "I couldn't have done it without you," I replied honestly. She gave a thin smile. Protecting the brand is my job. I just happen to enjoy it when justice is a collateral benefit. Now go on. He's been eager to speak with you. Julian Vance was exactly as I remembered, intense, intelligent, and with an aura of quiet authority. When he saw me, his face broke into a genuine smile. He excused himself from his conversation and came to meet me, taking both of my hands in his. "Amelia, you look stunning," he said, his eyes flicking down to the bag on my arm. "And you have brought the Serafina home." "I wouldn't have missed it," I said. "Thank you for the invitation." "It was the least I could do," he replied, his gaze sharp. "Integrity is a rare commodity. It deserves to be rewarded. Now come, there are people you must meet." The next 2 hours were a blur of introductions and fascinating conversations. Julian introduced me not as a photographer he'd hired, but as a fellow artist with a remarkable eye. He told the story of our collaboration on his Big Sur home, praising my professionalism and vision. I spoke with the creative director of a major luxury hotel group about a potential project, debated the merits of brutalist architecture with a Pritzker Prize-winning architect, and shared a laugh with a legendary fashion photographer whose work I had idolized for years. With the Serafina bag on my arm, I wasn't an outsider. I was a part of the conversation. The bag, once a source of humiliation and stress, was now restored to its original meaning, a symbol of earned respect. Sometime after midnight, I found a quiet spot on the terrace to catch my breath. I checked my phone for the first time all evening. The screen lit up with a barrage of notifications. 15 missed calls from Chloe. 10 from my mother. A string of increasingly frantic text messages. They had built a world based on illusions, and I had simply held up a mirror. The next day, the fallout was swift and brutal. A well-known LA gossip blogger, who had clearly been at the party, posted a thinly veiled item about an influencer wannabe, who had a meltdown at the gates of an A-list fashion event. Though names were omitted, the description of a screeching fashionista in a blinding pink dress left little to the imagination. The comments section quickly identified Chloe. The photographer who had done her shoot quietly deleted the blog post from his website. The small beauty brand that had just signed her for a 2-post deal sent her an email terminating their contract, citing a morals clause. Her carefully constructed facade crumbled in less than 24 hours. She had craved the spotlight, and now she had it. Just not in the way she had envisioned. I spent the day in my quiet loft, editing my photos, the peaceful, repetitive clicks of my mouse a soothing rhythm. That evening, I cleaned the Serafina bag with a soft cloth, carefully wiping away any trace of the night, including the faint makeup smudge that had started it all. I placed it back on its shelf in my closet. It looked perfect, settled. My phone buzzed one last time. It was a text from my father, the first I'd received from him through this whole ordeal. "Your mother is very upset. Call home." I looked at the message, then at the bag. It was more than just an accessory, it was a boundary. A beautiful, well-made, and unbreachable line I had finally drawn in the sand. Chloe had taken the bag to pretend she was someone she wasn't. I had taken it back to become the person I was always meant to be. The weeks that followed were quiet. I didn't hear from Chloe at all. Her social media went dark for a while, and when it reappeared, the tone was different. The aspirational posts about luxury brands and exclusive parties were gone, replaced by generic wellness content and muted selfies taken in her apartment. The sparkle, however artificial, was gone. My parents tried to broker a peace, urging me to be the bigger person and reach out to her. "She's learned her lesson," my mother insisted during a strained phone call. But I knew she hadn't learned the lesson I'd intended. She hadn't learned about integrity or respect. She had only learned that getting caught was humiliating. The core of her character, the entitled, manipulative core, remained unchanged. She was simply regrouping, waiting for the heat to die down before concocting her next scheme. The chasm that had always existed between us was now, finally, acknowledged. It was no longer something I had to constantly try to bridge. My career, on the other hand, flourished. The connections I made at the Vance Atelier party blossomed into tangible opportunities. The hotel group hired me for a major project in Kyoto. The architect invited me to photograph his new museum wing in Chicago. My work, which had always been my focus, was now getting the recognition I had fought so hard for. I was traveling, creating, and building a life that was authentically mine, a life that didn't require any props or fabricated stories. I was in my loft one rainy Tuesday evening, packing for the trip to Japan, when a small, elegant box arrived by messenger. Inside, nestled on a bed of black velvet, was a small, brushed gold wing, identical to the clasp on the Serafina bag, but fashioned into a pin. The attached card was from Julian Vance. It read, "A reminder that true artisans recognize one another. The world has enough copies. JV." I pinned it to the lapel of my travel coat. It was a small, subtle piece of armor, a quiet symbol of a battle won. I often think about that night, about the look on Chloe's face, the weight of the bag on my arm, the cool, clean feeling of justice served. It wasn't my finest moment as a sister or a daughter, but it was my most formative moment as a woman. It was the moment I stopped allowing someone else's narrative to consume my own. It was the moment I learned that sometimes the only way to protect the beautiful things you've built is to burn down the lies that threaten to destroy them. I finished packing my camera gear, the tools of my trade, the evidence of my hard work. My phone lay on the counter, silent for a change. My family hadn't called in days. Some things once broken are not meant to be fixed, they are meant to be understood. The end.